Virag. I am from Hungary originally. I have recently created an Instagram account called Suport Links, and as the Instagram handle suggests, my craft is knitting. I am going to talk about depression, self-harming thoughts, and miscarriage. I have always been the sensitive one, the one that got down very easily, the one who was never fitting in, and someone who comes from Hungary. I never even thought about mental health. I always thought that I'm just a bad one, that I was put together wrong and everyone else around me was right and I should just suck it up and get on with it. And when I was 18, I moved to the UK, and 2 years later I had a big panic attack. I couldn't sleep for 3 days. I ended up at the emergency room because I just didn't sleep at all. So that's where it all really began. Then I went through the NHS, had some courses through them, and while those have helped, I felt like I needed someone or something that was more personal. So I ended up going to a therapist who has really helped me. I was doing CBT, which is short for cognitive behavioral therapy, and throughout the 4 years I've been dealing with it. I have learned a lot about myself and a lot about the world, basically. And I have learned that the main trigger for me was being perfect, and if I'm not perfect, I'm a failure, and I had a lot of issues around that. With the help of my therapist, I was able to learn that not everything is black and white, and there's a lot of grey area that you just have to allow to happen. And I'm still learning. I've been here I'm 24 now, and this all happened when I was 18 and I still had down days. Since then, I have decided to go into medication, which did help, but something to keep in mind is that it's not a magic pill. It's not going to solve everything, so that's good to keep in mind. I have suffered a lot with self-harming thoughts because in my mind, if I wasn't perfect, then I might as well just go. And therapy and the pills and my fiance have helped me through a lot of this, and now I'm happy to say that I'm much better and I'm much acceptable with myself, and I allow myself to sometimes just not be the best, because that's alright too. And I think that's important to hear, that sometimes you don't have to be the best. Sometimes you can just be mediocre, and that's perfectly fine. And then recently I had a miscarriage due to a chemical pregnancy, and that really floored me. I haven't felt that down or awful in years. So I sort of went back into the anxiety circle, which I'm sure many of us who suffer with depression and anxiety know, those vicious circles that you go into. And I'm happy to say that this time around I found it much easier to handle it and not being so hard on myself. I've started knitting about a year ago because I've always been crafty, but I never found a craft that talked to me really. And I always wanted to knit, but I never had the courage. And then my fiance talked me into it during lockdown. So as the high achiever I am, I have started with a single blanket and I just fell in love with it. It helped me go through that journey of not everything is perfect. I'm not perfect. This blanket isn't perfect. And it still ended up being beautiful, and it still ended up being a very useful thing. So I sort of love the little mistakes in there. It's a simple garter stitch blanket, but there's so many mistakes in it. And then it just sort of grew from that. I love knitting jumpers. I've recently gotten into socks, and my fiance is the unfortunate one who has to bear all the gift knitting I do, although I am planning to expand the gifting circle. And then recently, when I was really down after my miscarriage, I have found that knitting helped me process the loss and find a way to close that chapter. And so I made this little hat for the little one that I will never know. And it's silly to think that something like this would help so much, but it genuinely has. And then afterwards I made this shawl, and with every single little stitch I just felt better. I can't really explain why, but it just helps me to relax, helps me to sort of switch off from all that's going on in your head. So knitting has really been a revolutionary thing for me as someone who likes to be busy, who likes to be always on time with everything, always on point with everything. And knitting just really helped me to appreciate the little things, like a lovely shawl or some jumpers that I made for myself. And yes, they do have some mistakes, but I still love them the same. I would say anyone who's out there and feels really alone and down, reach out. I know it's hard. I was the same. I'm a very stubborn person and I wanted to solve this by myself. I wanted to get on it. I wanted to deal with it. But I had to realize that it's something I have to talk about. And it's okay to be down. And it's okay to be sensitive. And it's okay to have these overwhelming thoughts. And there's always something someone can do to help you, and you're not alone, and you don't have to deal with it alone. And knitting helps, I guess. Thank you for listening.